You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast, presented by Independent Roofing Systems. If you want it done right the first time, visit Independent Roofing Systems today.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Are you ready? Yes!
Now live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
All right, some people think that the over-under in this Mississippi State A&M game should be 30. We're going to welcome in Steve Robertson here in a second. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Brought to you by the ribeye that I smashed last night at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. Blake and I may have had a Four Roses Bourbon Old Fashioned. Just going to throw that out there. We're live in the BankPlus Studio. Steve Robertson, JeansPage.com, the Boneyard Podcast. Steve joins us on the Modelo guest line. And, Steve, we're kind of referring to this as the Jefferson Pilot Game of the Week because of the way these two teams play offense. Is it first 1 to 20 for you? How do you see it?
Yeah, that's pretty much as I see it. You know, I think this could be one of those 2017, 17-14 type games. I mean, you know, State has had some struggles on offense, but a lot of them have been self-inflicted. It's not necessarily that anybody stopped them. But, you know, with Calzada's kind of anemic quarterback play, you know, he's last in the SEC in completion percentage. They've become fairly one-dimensional. And so State, this is kind of a good matchup for State. It's like, you know, they want to run the football. They have to run the football, and State has been awfully good against the run. So if you can neutralize Spiller and put the game into Calzada's hands, I think, you know, you got a chance of him throwing you the football. And so, yeah, I think it won't be an offensive masterpiece by any stretch by either team. So I do think I think the smart money's on the under.
So I think Mississippi State can move the ball through the air. And as you have said, they have moved it a good bit, more than fans want to give Leach and Will Rogers credit for. Obviously, the red zone issues are glaring. But even though Elko is excellent, and I think if I take the 4 units, Steve, on the field, on the field on Saturday, A&M has the best unit of the 4, their defense. But I think Mississippi State can move the ball, and it will just come down to what they do in the red zone. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. You know, and I think when you look at, too, you talk about, you know, this A&M defense, you know, they've been really good against the pass. But a lot of that, too, I think is because of the matchups they face. You know, Arkansas is a run-first team and was able to put up 20 points, and Arkansas actually left some points on the field. But I think you're right about the Aggie defense being really, really salty. And I think this, in many respects, may boil down to, you know, the big play or the big mistake. I mean, you look at the kicking teams for A&M with 47 yards, a punt, and I think it's 15 out of 21 kicks into the end zone. So the State return game, in many respects, will likely be neutralized. And so you're going to have to drive the field, and they're probably a little bit better at punting than you are right now. So you've got to find a way to move the chains and get some first downs, even in non-scoring drives, just to win that battle of field position. Because it could be a situation where State goes 3 and out and has to punt. You give A&M the ball around the 50, you know, then all of a sudden you're kind of setting yourself up for failure there. So State got to be sound in the kicking game because this is going to be – I really think it's a one-possession game. I think in the end it's going to boil down to one possession, and if somebody's going to have to make a play to win it.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show. Okay, well, then what's the latest on Ruiz, their field goal kicker, because they're struggling there, and they may have to hit a field goal or two if they can extend the game into the fourth quarter to give themselves a chance to win.
Well, I'm not sure that I would say they're struggling there. McCord has been 3 of 4. He missed the one that's kind of stands out last week because it's 3-point loss. But but Ruiz, I still think he's a couple weeks away. I mean, you know, he's a guy. It's kind of a feel thing. He's been receiving treatment the last couple of weeks, and you know, as a kicker, I mean, you know, he's had hamstring issues, he's had back issues, and both of those things make it difficult to kick a football. So, you know, I think Scott Goodman's done a great job as the kickoff guy. I don't know that he's had a kick returned yet. I mean, he was great, you know, before Ruiz got here, and says a lot about that guy too to hang in there. And When Reed shows up and comes back, Goodman could have easily gone into the transfer portal, but he stuck around, and he's been a real weapon for State. And so, yeah, I don't worry so much about the kickoffs. I do worry a little bit about, what happens when the game is on the line and you trot Noah McCord out there and say, hey, go kick a field goal to win the ball game. That's a situation he hadn't been in on the college level. And so you do have more of a comfort level if Ruiz is the guy trotting out there. I just don't expect him to be there this weekend.
Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast on the Out of Bounds Show. All right, some positive news, Steve. It's the best that offensive line's played in a long time. How would you grade it? I thought they looked almost great on Saturday, considering where they started.
Well, you give up the one sack, and that's on the Hail Mary attempt to end the first half. And so that's not technically the same thing, And I think when you look in hindsight, where State has struggled against teams like LSU is because they've been out-talented. And I never at any point thought that LSU overwhelmed the State offensive line. That surprised me a little bit, to be honest with you, because, you got, Mason and those guys out there that are pretty legit, future NFL guys. And I never at any point felt like when State dropped back to pass, oh, we're in trouble. You never felt that way. And I thought they really grew up a lot, and I think they graded out pretty well. But at the end of the day, they gave Will Rogers more time to throw than they have at any point this year against the nation's top pass rushing team. So if nothing else, it should give them some confidence. Hey, let's continue to buy into the system, because clearly we're beginning to see some dividends. And they have progressively gotten better in the last few weeks, but without a doubt, against LSU, the Mississippi State offensive line have played better than they have at any point this year, and perhaps even last year.
I'm not going to name any names, but I thought I saw some alligator arms on Saturday. It's easy for me to say. I was up in the stands drinking beer and eating nachos. But when you're wide open in the seam, I thought it cost Will Rogers some serious yards, some explosive plays, and moving the chains, and maybe even a touchdown, Steve.
Yeah, Ra Thomas and Jaden Wally both had really big drops over the course of the game. The one to Ra was a little bit behind him, so I won't consider it 100% on him. Will's got to throw that ball on time and on target. But yeah, there were some drops last week that were huge. But I think by and large, this group is really good at catching the football. It's kind of isolated to a couple of guys that are still young guys that are kind of figuring this thing out. But Will, I thought, played really well at times last week, and missed a couple throws. But we talk about this week after week that there's going to be some up and down with the young quarterback. I mean, when you drop back and throw it 60, 65, 70 times a game, not all the ball placements are going to be perfect.
No.
And some of those have got to be able to adjust when it's not so perfect and make a play. That's the bigger issue. Is this is a team that is capable of making plays, and you and I have discussed this before too. It's like there's these critics of Mike Leach say, well, the air raid's not going to work in the SEC, and then in the next breath they'll say, but there's guys running wide open. Well, it can't be both. So if the guys are running wide open, it just tells me you need a little bit better quarterback play, and I think that's on the way as Will continues to mature.
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't know what they're all supposed to be doing every play, and don't claim to, but I was sitting in the scoreboard section on Saturday in the end zone, and there were guys running wide open, Steve. So I do think that, the offense can work. And I think Will's close. And, hopefully their receivers get better. All right, on defense real quick. You thinking Calzada hasn't played much and Arnett and that D are just, baiting and begging for a big turnover on Saturday to maybe put their offense in a good position on the 30 or 40-yard line, 20-yard line of A&M?
And I think that's really got to happen. I think if you can get a turnover and really get a short field, that'll be a huge factor in the ball game, because this is a quarterback that will give you the football game if you let him. You just got to go out there and get in his head a little bit, speed him up a little bit, force him into a mistake, and then make him pay for it.
When are you leaving?
Tomorrow morning.
All right. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports, the Boneyard Podcast on the Modelo guest line, MSU A&M, 6 o'clock kick on the SEC Network on Saturday night to go with your steak and Four Roses small batch bourbon. We'll be back in a second. We're live in the BankPlus Studio. Brad Edwards will join us live in studio at 9:30. Brad Edwards live in studio, 9:30 today. Welcome in. Good morning. You can order award-winning Jonesy Q rubs and sauces at jonesyq.com. Use promo code OOBSHOW if you order $20 or more and receive free shipping. That's jonesyq.com. Promo code OOBSHOW. All right, so I respectfully agree to disagree with Tripp on the agup.com text line. Mississippi Ag, that's where you get your next John Deere tractor to manage your land. I'd love to hear from you. 601-885-3776. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone ESPN. Tripp says that Mississippi State lost the game because the defense gave up 3 big plays. And the kicker missed a chip shot field goal. Okay, there's no doubt that they gave up, some explosive plays that they should not have given up. But I'll say this. They put the defense in bad spots left and right throughout the year.
Correct.
So it's just not, 1998, Sherrill would get however many stops a game. And when football was played like that, they could win, right? I mean, they had a horrendous offense other than J.J. Johnson in 98. 99 was not a good offense. Still not sure what Sparky Woods was trying to do. I don't think he knows what he was trying to do. But or maybe Sherrill just kept his thumb on him to the point where, they were going to be, that bland and vanilla. But anyway, point is, you're setting your defense up time and time again to have to hold. And that's not the way the game works anymore.
Nope.
So you're right. They can't give up those explosive plays. And, they were burned bad a couple of times. But, I think all in all, the defense has played well. They're not great. They're not elite. They don't have an elite player on the defensive side of the ball. Martin Emerson's a good player. Forbes is a good player. Crumity's a good player. There's a couple. They're playing a couple of guys that shouldn't be playing SEC football. I'm not going to name names, but they're playing some guys that shouldn't be playing SEC football on the defense. And I don't even think they would play at Troy. So while there's some good athletes and good players on that defense, they've got some guys that are more Austin P than Troy also playing on that defense. And that's going to come down to recruiting and, what this – I'm sorry, the transition from Mullen to Moorhead to Leach was pretty bumpy. You got to go find some players. And also it looks like you signed the least amount of players. How about this? Mississippi State signed the least amount of players in the last 4 recruiting cycles than anybody else in the SEC West.
It's not a good recipe for success.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if I'm high this morning. Well,
Bryce, he's on the Bryce Young train.
Bryce Young is not the best quarterback in the league this year. It's not close.
Here's the problem.
He's so far from Matt Corral's world, I don't even know how to.
If you took Bryce Young out of that system and put him anywhere else, what would he do?
What would Bryce Young look like at Mississippi State?
Versus what Matt Corral would do in the same position?
Very pedestrian.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yep.
Arkansas.
Yep.
Kentucky. Vanderbilt. Even A&M. Auburn. So.
A&M is where offenses go to die. I stand on that hill.
Hey, Jimbo's an offensive guru.
I've been anti-Jimbo since he was at Florida State. This idea that
you are coming in hot
that
today.
Jimbo's this elite offensive mind, and
he's not,
and that he did something. Look, he got onto the right guy in Nick Saban at LSU, parlayed that into a good job, and then
by the way, he was about to take the UAB job
which would have
years ago
exposed him for what he really is.
And I guess Saban and the board of trustees or something blocked him. It was real weird. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, he is a guy who's never played anything but downhill with his talent. And so, I mean, if he doesn't sign and manage to keep out of jail Jameis Winston, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because he never would have lucked into a national title.
All right, let's move on from that. All of a sudden the text line got real opinionated, and I like it. I want you to bring it, come in hot, come in with, a strong opinion. All right, we've got an Alabama fan on here that's telling me
clearly
that Bryce Young would be elite anywhere. False. Maybe at some point as he grew up, he would, but that's not the case.
That's what people don't understand is they're wanting to measure the two as if Bryce Young's already matured into a third-year player.
Check his 247 ranking.
Who cares about 247 ranking?
Oh, my gosh. Somebody. Will you throw that helmet at me, Will? It'll make me feel better. These guys are making my head hurt. Do I need a Bloody Mary?
How many guys could we
What's
go
today?
right now and find who had 4 and 5-star 247 rankings that never did anything in college football?
Well, let's go to we just talked about how the elite schools don't have elite QBs this year.
But they were all 4 and 5 stars.
That's why it's a great year to be Ole Miss or Arkansas and be really, really good. The elite schools don't have elite QBs.
Mm-mm.
It's real simple. Texas, Clemson, Ohio State. I don't know what to say about Oklahoma, but LSU. Does Georgia have an elite QB?
No.
There were actually people that get a microphone that thought JT Daniels is better than Matt Corral. I could have gotten my daughter and her friends together last spring and just, put the YouTube up on the big screen, and they could have figured that out in 30 seconds. I mean, goodness gracious. What's Ron talking about? Slow the hate down, bro.
QB1 says, I'm a State fan, and I'd rather have Matt Corral over Bryce Young, and I hate Corral. That's honesty.
Every day, all day, 10 times on Sunday, yes.
Yeah. Now, what Bryce Young is in 2 years, you might go, wow, this guy's amazing.
Sure. Part of it will be he's good. Part of it will be he plays around great players.
And that's the part you can't blame Bryce Young for, but you also have to, when trying to evaluate talent, take that into consideration.
Tony says Lane Kiffin made Blake Sims look good. Dan Mullen made Chris Relf. And Nick Fitzgerald look good. And nobody, you do know who Mississippi State signed Chris Relf over? Alabama A&M. And then Nick Fitzgerald had an offer from Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah.
And he was a phenomenal quarterback in the SEC.
That guy who said check his 247 ranking goes, my bad, Bo Nix was a 5-star.
So was Shea Patterson. And Felipe Franks in the same class. Felipe Franks and Shea Patterson were both top 10 players overall, regardless of position, and both 5-star quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How many NFL games will Felipe Franks and Shea Patterson start?
Not many.
How many will Dak Prescott?
He's at 60-something.
Okay. All right. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Real quick, Blake, you said it was National Something Day.
It's National Chewing Gum Day and National Love People Day.
All right, that's perfect for me because I love a lot of people.
That is a lie.
That for you,
you're a hater.
This is a day that doesn't fit you.
That's such a lie.
Okay, National Love People Day is my kind of day, because I'm a lover. You, on the other hand, always are drinking Haterade.
That's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie.
All right,
I love San Antonio and Memphis. Two things you can't say.
San Antonio and Memphis.
Those are two of our most contentious topics of the year, or when we talked about San Antonio and Memphis.
San Antonio, which one would I rather live in?
That's a great question. Neither.
I'm leaning towards San Antonio, but I've never been there.
It's great. It's a great place to be.
But if I could stay on the cliff of the Mississippi River in one of those cool houses or condos, I'd be okay with that.
You'd have to live in Memphis, though. That's the problem.
That's fine.
Ugh.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, is brought to you by Eye Care Professionals. Dr. Kirk Jeffries and the team on Lakeland Drive. Blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals. New location, Belmead, Flowood. Dr. Kirk Jeffries, Eye Care Professionals. Routine eye exam, blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. What is this? QB1 says Memphis, get away from the border. Hey, we're live in the BankPlus Studio. BankPlus, it's more than a name. It's a promise.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Kessler Prime. For the best steaks in Mississippi, visit Kessler Prime in the Renaissance.
That's funny. All right, SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue. And they are now serving breakfast. They're on Main Street, Madison. Obviously, they have delicious burgers, but they are serving breakfast at Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue, including the honey butter chicken biscuit and the chicken and waffles and the hash brown bowl and many, many other yummy goodies at Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue that's now on Main Street. It was on County Line for years, now on Main Street, Madison. Serving breakfast. Check it out. And if your office is ordering, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen biscuits for the morning, you definitely want to hammer the honey butter chicken biscuit from Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue. Blake sure does. I mean, he was like
they're fire.
It was like a guy who hadn't anything to eat in 3 weeks. Last time Matthew went and got our honey butter chicken biscuits.
They're fire. Fire biscuits.
Will, make sure Bob can get back in. It looks like he's walking out. So we don't want him to lock himself out.
Is he taking a cell phone call?
Michigan Bob is with us. Yeah, he doesn't have a cell phone. This is one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard.
I don't understand.
Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He runs a very lucrative business, and he has no cell phone. That's incredible. I think about all the time I waste on my cell phone. And now there's money to be made on your cell phone too.
Yeah.
Right?
Not evil.
Yeah. You're talking to clients. You can put a proposal together now on a phone and email it, which is awesome. All kinds of cool stuff that you can do. You can receive something that says, hey, somebody just spent X amount of thousands of dollars with us.
I thought you were going to say one of your kids spent X amount of thousands.
No, I already know they spend a lot of money.
I get a notification
that's why I did that vasectomy commercial. It said, 2's enough and they're expensive. Bo knows that.
Accurate.
And I'm in the most expensive time of my life. They're juniors and seniors in high school and about to go to college. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm hemorrhaging cash. Plus, you're expensive. Anyway, the whole thing. Anyway, Michigan Bob is with us. We're happy that he's here. He's not sold on his Wolverines, so
he shouldn't be.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Georgia or A&M. I can't trust you if over the last 20 years you've done nothing but show me you can't do it.
Yeah,
I mean, were they 0-14 against Ohio State in their last 14, and they're like 2-20 in the decade? I mean,
can you imagine if Ole Miss or Mississippi State went 0-14
in modern
the
football?
rivalry?
Heck no.
That the last 30 years is basically all tied up?
No.
15-15 or something like that?
Yeah, look, we talk about it a little bit in baseball. What has happened in baseball has put some pressure on Ole Miss where it probably shouldn't. Bianco's obviously an incredibly successful top 5% coach, but when you can't beat your rival, I think Jim Harbaugh's a good football coach, but he can't beat Ohio State, and that's not really his fault. That's 30 years of bad culture, bad decision-making by administrators and coaches, talent deficiencies that after 20 years you can't make up. I don't know. It's his fault that they're bad, but when you can't beat your rival and you're not even close most years, that's not a recipe for success.
Is it 14 in a row?
It's something
Michigan,
big. I'll pull it up, Winsipedia.
Michigan Bob? The Big Ten.
Big Ten Bob. He's not claiming Michigan.
Is it How many has Ohio State won in a row?
We've won 11.
Okay.
So that's 10 straight.
So it's like 14 of 15 or 15 of 16. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Having fun today. The Sanderson Farms Championship is underway at the Country Club of Jackson. And Sergio Garcia is back to defend his championship. Andy Ogletree will tee off at 8:33, 8:35 today from Union, Mississippi.
Right now.
Oh, it is 8:30, yeah. He went to Georgia Tech. He grew up playing at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, the Azaleas and the Oaks. And they think he's got a heck of a career ahead of him. And so Ogletree is teeing off right now.
Yep.
And we'll see how he does. We obviously hope that he makes the cut.
Yeah.
He's super young, but has proven that he is one heck of a golfer. So that's kind of cool. That's really cool,
Sergio tees off at 12 today. Okay. Right now, there's a small group on the course. They started about an hour and a half ago. The leaders are at -3. Two guys at -3. Okay. Adam Hadwin out of Canada and Henrik Norlander out of Sweden.
Oh.
So we got some international flavor at the Sanderson Farms early today.
I like that.
But 3 under through 6 and 5 respectively. So the lead group is headed through the 6th hole right now.
All right. Leaderboard update brought to you by Edwin White's Golf Shop on County Line Road. That's where you go to get your golf game where you want it before going to Dancing Rabbit Golf Club or Live Oaks Golf Club.
Let me ask you this question, since we're talking a little Big Ten football and just kind of people outside the SEC real quick. Who do you have more faith in? A Big Ten school, either Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan, or Notre Dame to actually be a playoff contender?
That's a good question because I don't trust Notre Dame's what they're doing on offense.
No, I agree. You talk about Jefferson Pilot Game of the Week. Yeah.
This is the first time in a long time they don't have a good offensive line at Notre Dame. They think they will, but not this year.
Mm-hmm.
They do a great job signing offensive linemen. Brian Kelly has been on this role where they have been really, really good in the trenches on the O-line, but they are not this year. With a new quarterback, that's not a recipe for success. Mm-hmm. They basically have one weapon, the tight end. So to answer your question, I would lean toward Penn State, but I haven't watched enough of them to know either.
Yeah,
Brian Kelly's a really good coach.
Yeah.
We were talking to Big Ten Bob about Harbaugh and Michigan, but they don't have the guy at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
So what I lean toward Penn State out of those 4 teams
because they have the best resume to date.
They beat Auburn at home.
Although they were outgained by Wisconsin by almost 100 yards and were barely able to win that game 16-10. Then you beat Auburn at home, but Auburn doesn't.
16-10 is what jumps out at me. James Franklin is like 8 years in.
At least.
And other than Saquon Barkley and McSorley, they haven't been able to get their offense going.
Nope.
So I really don't have any faith or confidence in any of those teams. That's why we talk about Ole Miss. If there's ever a year to make a big splash, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State are all down.
Yeah.
Clemson's down. Florida State's just off the grid.
They're 0-4.
Texas is in transition. I don't know what's going on with Oklahoma, but they don't look good. Southern Cal's looking for a new coach. Georgia doesn't have the flavor on offense.
It feels like this could be the weakest group of playoff teams we've ever seen since the playoff got put together in 2014. I think without question we're going to go, wow, outside of Alabama, and maybe even they will show some weaknesses this Saturday. We don't know yet. We're still assuming because of what we've seen from Nick Saban for 20 years. But you could go into this going, wow, there's not a favorite in the playoff because every one of them has glaring weaknesses.
At the end of the year, it could be Bama, Florida, and Ole Miss. Could be the best teams in the country.
Brad Edwards asked, can we say if is there a better team than the 4 in the SEC?
He mentioned Georgia, too.
And you have to because they've done it up to this point. They've done what they're supposed to do, which is beat whoever's in front of them.
Well, Georgia gets to go to Auburn next weekend, and we'll see. I know Auburn's not great, but that's a tough place to play. So I'm not sold that Georgia can do all this stuff that we're that we're talking about. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, is brought to you by Fleetway Market. Fuel up at Fleetway Market, over 20 locations in the state of Mississippi. Fuel up at Fleetway Market on your way to the Sanderson Farms Championship, high school football, college, or the hunting camp. Show is also presented by Havana Smoke Shop. If you're looking for a premium cigar for this weekend, whether it's golf and or football, or should I say football and golf, Havana Smoke Shop has got you covered. La Florida Dominicanas, Fuentes, Olivas, all at Havana Smoke Shop. 2 locations, one at the reservoir across from Shaggy's and one I-55 North on the frontage road. If you were going to give the points in one of the games, 2 games, which one would you do it? Would you take Bama and give them, or Georgia and give them? In the 2 spreads, that one's 14.5, one's 18.5. By the way, I went 4-2 last weekend.
Makes my stomach hurt.
Big wins. Big wins.
Don't you feel like Arkansas is the more blowout susceptible team? Because if they get down, how do they get back into it?
They're a Dan Mullen, Mississippi State type team. Can't come back. Like you said, you get down 13-0, 14-0.
Yeah.
Wheels start falling off. You have to start doing what you don't want to do, which is throwing the ball a little too much.
And Georgia can pin their ears back, come after you, just attack, which becomes much more difficult to run your offense through. The Chiefs mentioned that when they played Baker Mayfield. The Browns had that lead, and they were doing good on offense, but once they got down, they knew Baker had to throw, and it changed the way they played him, and Baker couldn't throw. I think you see the same thing from Arkansas. I guess the one question mark, though, is does Barry Odom stop Georgia?
Ooh,
because maybe
what if
it's
Barry Odom holds Georgia to under 10 points,
or you get like a pick 6 against you, so like they give up 13 offensive points, but Georgia gets a pick 6 touchdown too.
Yeah, so
they lose like 20-6, right? Where Georgia they can't cover the 18.5 because they can't even score. That would be, I guess, my question about that game.
Can you imagine if Barry Odom wins this thing for the Arkansas Razorbacks, the high that they'll be on going into Oxford next weekend?
No.
And if Arkansas and Ole Miss win,
game day.
Ole Miss could host game day.
Oh, they will hold. I would be shocked if they didn't host game day.
So they'll be 4-0, and they will have just beat Alabama.
And Arkansas would be 5-0, beating Texas A&M, and Georgia. Yeah, the game day will be there 100%.
I hope everybody already has tickets and places to stay, because it'll be nuts if that's the case. If the 2 teams are combined 9-0.
If I give you right now, you got to pick one team to pull the win out of your non-favored. Either State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, or Auburn.
That's close between State and Ole Miss. I don't think State can score 17 to 20 points against A&M. So I'll go. State should win that game at A&M.
They should. What's sad is Mississippi State should have beaten Memphis, and they probably should have beaten LSU.
Yeah.
You could be sitting here going, all the teams in Mississippi are under. Ole Miss and State are going to be 3-0 and 4-0 respectively heading into Week 5, and really they should be.
Mental miscues. I can't go there. They'll have to show me. I'll go Ole Miss. What's the line in the State game? 7?
7 to 7.5, depending on where you find it.
That's according to Caesars right here. I've got 7. You're on another. I think you're on covers.com.
Yeah, you find whichever one works best for you. Find the line that works for you, right?
Over under?
It's tiny. It's minuscule. It's like 47.5. Ole Miss and Alabama are now up to 79.5. That's a huge number.
I'm going under.
So you think it won't be the shootout that people are expecting?
It'll still be high scoring, but I'm going to go under 79.5 if I was betting.
So 40-35, you're safe.
Yeah.
42-35, you're safe.
40-38, you're safe.
There, yeah, you got to. I guess let me ask you that question. Do you think Ole Miss scores 40 points? If you're taking the under, you're telling me no, they don't score.
Well,
40.
I got Alabama winning by a touchdown.
So you would say Ole Miss does not score 40.
I think they'll be right there.
Okay.
Right there. 41-38, I'm still clean.
Unnamed texter wants to know, can they win
How about that?
Can Ole Miss win the West if they lose Saturday to Alabama? Realistically, I know everything's possible, but realistically,
I don't think so.
Because who could Alabama lose to, right?
I don't think so.
There's not 2 losses on the Alabama roster on the schedule.
No. If Ole Miss loses on Saturday, I don't think that they can win the West.
They still go to New Year's Six Bowl.
Absolutely.
Could easily still finish second in the West.
The New Year's Six Bowls may be begging people to get in their bowls, the way this thing is shaping up. We're in a weird spot in college football this year.
There's potential of a 2-loss playoff team, too, depending on how all this shapes off. I mean, who's going to win the ACC? Wake Forest?
Ole Miss or Florida gets in with a loss or 2?
That'll be the real question. Does someone who doesn't play in their title game get in the playoff?
Well, if Bama loses this weekend and then stays clean,
yes,
they've got a great chance to get in the playoff.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it'll be harder for Ole Miss because the playoffs.
They'll have played they can't help that Miami's not any good.
Yeah.
But a lot of teams didn't even play that good of a program in the non-conference.
Yeah.
And they also pulled Florida from the East. And I think that'll go a long way, too, Blake, because Florida will win a lot of games.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. And Bama, the name is always going to get you, whether it's fair or not, it's going to get you the benefit of the doubt.
Can you imagine if we get Kiffin and Dan Mullen in the SEC championship game?
That won't be contentious, will it?
Now, Kiffin and Kirby work together at Alabama. So if you got Ole Miss and Georgia in the SEC, and this is a long shot, but if you got Ole Miss and Georgia in the SEC championship game, Lane Train and Kirby coached together at Alabama before Kirby went to UGA.
Georgia?
Yeah. They were there, I think, in 14 and 15 together.
16 was Kirby's first year.
Yeah, and Hugh Freeze beat him like 90-0 in his first year. And they only won 5 games that year. That goes to show you. Seriously, in September, I think it was like 38-0. Something bad. Hugh Freeze beat Kirby Smart in year 1, 2016, in Oxford. That was the year he was up 3 touchdowns on Florida State
and
up
Alabama.
3 touchdowns on Alabama in the first, I think, 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Florida State was the opening game. That was a neutral site game somewhere. Yeah. Atlanta or something like that?
I think it was in Tallahassee. Where was it?
I thought that was a neutral. I was thinking that was a neutral site game. Yeah. So they were in Tallahassee, man. What might have been? Do you think they fire Freeze if he wins those games? Everything else would have been the same, but if they had won those 2 games?
If they had won those 2 games in 2016 and smashed Georgia the way they did, he would have probably had a really big year.
And then would he have been fired following that is the question.
Even losing, was it Shea that they lost and then Jordan Ta'amu took over? I can't remember.
Yeah, it all blends together. Yeah. But that does sound right.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, was Chad the starter?
And got hurt.
And he got hurt.
Tore his ACL, yeah.
Okay. And then Shea took over. That's it.
Played Vanderbilt, A&M, and Mississippi State, right? Yeah.
Chad Kelly got hurt, and Shea Patterson took over.
See, it was in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. Okay. I knew it was a neutral site game. Matthew. Throwing false knowledge around
Matthew,
here.
Nobody likes to say I'm right like Blake.
Hey.
I mean, we all want to be right.
Someone has
to tell. This guy takes I'm right to a whole nother level.
Someone's got to carry a burden, a standard here. All right, somebody's got to be the flag bearer for excellence at this show.
That's true,
and that's me.
That's true.
I carry that burden,
especially on National Love Someone Day.
And I love all the people. I love all of them.
Do you love Brooks and Ben?
Of course.
Matt?
Yes.
Jake?
I love everybody.
Okay. Cool.
I got love on Beaver. He's the one that keeps us on the air when we are switching back and forth like we like to do.
That man's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah.
Okay. He's kind of our MacGyver now.
What do you call it? Like, he's the coach that doesn't get the credit. He's always working hard but not getting the love like the head coach.
I need to switch gears real quick. Brady's playing Belichick this weekend.
That's correct.
And the Seth Wickersham book on the New England Patriots that he wrote, and he went behind the scenes with all sorts of people in and around Belichick, Kraft, and Brady. And some of the excerpts are out, and they're not good. I'm just letting you know. I was listening to it this morning, and then I read this article on PatriotsWire.com. And, I mean, look, It talks about how Tom Brady started talking about leaving the Patriots in 2017. It also discusses how Robert Kraft was cussing Bill Belichick in an Aspen hotel, calling him the biggest A-blank that he knew. And this was several years ago. And it's interesting that you can be extremely successful in a company. And you can have a lot of friction. But if you have talented people, a lot of times you can still make it go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times, some friction's not bad, right? You got to balance it.
Well, it's how you sharpen steel, right? You got to have it rub against each other.
And Brady was the guy who wanted to be loved, and it talks about how when he left, he wanted to go and talk to Belichick and have kind of a final one-on-one. I think he wanted to actually, even though he was frustrated with Belichick at times over the years,
say thank you.
They won a bunch of games, and Tom's more of a lover and wants, get along type person. And Belichick would not meet with him and said, no, let's just do it over the phone.
That's terrible.
All right. It also walks you through Belichick mad as you know what at Robert Kraft for making him trade Jimmy Garoppolo several years ago because evidently Brady leapfrogged Belichick and went to Kraft and said, you got to get this dude off my back. You got to get this guy out of the quarterback room. So the excerpts from this book, and it's going to be really good. Seth Wickersham is very, very talented. And this is kind of a tell-all of one of the most amazing dynasties in the history of American sports.
I mean, I'd say it's even more amazing than what Alabama's done, because of the parity at the NFL level.
No question.
The league is literally designed to prevent that from ever happening.
No question.
And to win 6 like they did in 15 years or whatever it is, truly remarkable.
And it's called It's Better to Be Feared. That's the name of the book by Seth Wickersham on the Patriots and Brady, Belichick, and Kraft. And even Kraft was dog cussing Belichick in this book, and years. So they recognize his brilliance. I think we've all worked with, whether it's in your company or a client, that has the ability to tick a lot of people off, but is so off the charts good at what they do that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They either generate revenue or they're very successful at what they're doing. And you can tell reading this that both Brady and Kraft wanted to take Belichick out to the woodshed, but he's still the brains behind the deal.
Yeah,
and Brady's a great quarterback. Kraft is smart not to he thinks Belichick is a jack blank, but he knew not to meddle.
And
it allowed them to win 6 Super Bowls.
Except when it came to Garoppolo, and that's where all this unravels. I
think you're right.
If Brady had left,
and Brady wanted Belichick to just allow him to give a little bit of input, and because he kept taking cuts in pay, and he was like, "Where's the offensive talent? Where are the wide receivers?
Why am
I
taking a pay cut if you're not adding people to my roster?"
And we've all been in organizations and processes and phases throughout our life where you think that you're doing something for the betterment of the company, and you're like, "Why isn't this recognized? Why are we? What's going on?" So it's this triangle: Kraft, Belichick, Brady, of 3 of the most successful men in the history of American sports, who are all multimillionaires, and Kraft's a billionaire, and Brady may be a billionaire at one point, and who have 6 rings far above and beyond anybody else. But there was constant friction, and they were flat out ticked off at each other at times. Isn't that unbelievable? And yet, when it comes, and I think this is where successful businesses work too, but when it came down to getting it done, right? And preparation and focus and everything else, they got it done. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Brad Edwards live in the BankPlus Studio at 9:30.